Hey guys, Lytane here, and thanks for checking out this video and joining me on what I have dubbed JuLion month, where I'll be talking about all things Lion King. Last week I talked about the original cartoon, and today I'm going to be talking about the games that were based upon it and seeing if they are worth it. JuLion month. The Lion King came out in 1994 and the games came out very soon afterwards, only being 2 months after the movie came out. These games were made by Virgin Interactive, who also made the Aladdin game for the Mega Drive, which I did a review on, so you should totally check that out. Unlike Aladdin though, Virgin made both the Mega Drive and the Super Nintendo versions of the game. The game follows the same story, or thereabouts, of the movie, with levels based on scenes and ideas from said movie. You play as Simba as a child in the first half of the game and an adult in the second half. Once again, Disney provided the animation for the world and characters to make them fluid and easier to animate in the video game form, which makes them look incredible. Even though I'm going to be talking about two different versions of the game, the Super Nintendo and the Mega Drive, they are very similar in almost all ways, so most of the stuff I'm going to be saying is similar across the board, and I'll point out the differences as we come to them. The controls for this game are very basic, and I think that's because Virgin made this game for the Mega Drive, which only has 3 buttons, so when the game comes over to the Super Nintendo, most of the buttons are just not used, which is a bit of a shame. Simba runs around, but there isn't any momentum to this game, so pretty much as soon as you start moving, that's the fastest speed that he will be going. He can jump on top of enemies, he can climb up ledges, he can swing on different things. He can also roar, and in the top left corner is your roar meter, saying that how far an enemy has to be away from you when you do your roar in order to stun it. If they're too far away, it does nothing. Also, when he becomes an adult, he can get a swipe attack, which just adds a little bit more gameplay variety to the game. Aside from that, that's mostly all he does. The main style of this gameplay is that of a platformer, with levels having a goal that you need to get to. Unlike most traditional platformers, they aren't a flag or anything substantial, so a lot of the time you will just reach the end of the level and have no idea that it was the end until the cutscene plays and it just sort of ends the level. These levels aren't very linear either, with most of them having you going left and right, up and down within the same level and getting a little lost. The very first level is one that you have to scale, like you're climbing to the top of Pride Rock, and it changes things up from the usual platformer, which mostly goes left to right. You aren't just going to be platforming through this entire game either. There are plenty of different gameplay styles in order to break things up, introduced pretty much every second level or so. Like in level 2, you'll be swinging from trees with monkeys throwing you around the place, or you'll be riding on an ostrich, which is very different. Level 4 has you running away from that infamous stampede, and it is so different from the rest of the game because you're running towards the screen and the wildebeests are behind you. The other major gameplay change is the fact that you start off as a young Simba and you end as an adult, and they play a little bit differently. With a young Simba, you can have a giant jump arc and you have a little bit more mobility as the character moves around, but you are incredibly weak. You can barely kill anything and your roar is just pitiful. When you finally become an adult, your roar is stronger. You have a swipe attack, which means that more enemies are present because you are more powerful. In the second half of the game, you'll be fighting a lot more things than you ever did in the first half of the game. Most levels will also end with a boss fight, which are mostly the hyenas. It's strange that they couldn't think of anything else to fight. As I said, the levels are based on scenes and ideas from the movie and expanded upon to be a full level, which is kind of typical for video games. I do find it really funny that Virgin must have got an advanced copy of the film, watched it, and just took whatever they saw and put it in the game. Like Simba's roar doesn't kill or scare in the film, so in the game, it just stuns. Remember those few scenes where Simba rides an ostrich during his song? Well, that's now a whole level mechanic. See that bone slide? Let's put that in. Oh look, some old skin or cloth or something like that the characters climb on? Well, now you can bounce on it. Simba also gets lost in these woods trying to get to Rafiki. Let's make a whole level on him being lost. It's honestly pretty funny. The gameplay for this game is honestly very hard. It lulls you into this false sense of security with the very first level because it is well designed and there aren't too many bad guys, the pitfalls mean nothing because you can always climb back up, and it isn't too difficult. Then we get the second stage, and holy Jesus, the difficulty goes through the roof. The fact that you have to swing on the tails of these stupid hippos is so frustrating. I swear to God that I would jump onto these tails and swing on them, but then they would just miss. Simba will just go through them. Also, the ostrich section is very, very unforgivable, and because of the backgrounds and the colors, I find that the things just sort of blend in together, so I'm not sure when I'm supposed to jump or when I'm supposed to duck. And that's just maybe me. And it's also unforgiving because the slightest touch of anything during that section will kill you. Your life bar means absolutely nothing. Other things that make this game hard is the fact that in the elephant graveyard level there are some vultures that follow you around, and they will follow you forever. For some reason they will track you through the entire level, and sometimes they take 2 or 3 hits to kill. It's inconsistent, which makes it even harder because you can't judge when these guys are going to die. Another inconsistency are the hyenas, where you'll be fighting them throughout Simba's childhood. You have to wait for them to get wheezy and tired before you can attack them. Normally it's after every 2 times that they try and attack you that they become stunned. Or sometimes it's not, sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 3. And because of those inconsistencies, you go and expect like, okay, this is the second attack, I can finally go and hit him, only for them to not give it stun, so you get hurt. There's also a section of the elephant graveyard where you're climbing up a wall while water rises beneath you. And it is so crazy because if the slightest pixel of water touches your tail, you die. Oh my god, I guess that Simba must be like Charmander or something, all of his powers in his tail, because I don't understand why he would die with just a pixel of water on his tail. It's ridiculous. For some reason, the Super Nintendo game is harder than the Mega Drive version. Most of the hardships I have already listed are only in the Super Nintendo version, and I don't know why. Like, the vultures don't follow you in the Mega Drive version, so you can run past them. Even the hippo swinging section can be skipped because Simba can jump higher in the Mega Drive version, making some of the platforming easier as well. Even with that slightly easier gameplay, it is still hard to finish. It isn't a very long game with only 10 levels, and of course the bonus levels where you play as Timon and Pumbaa, which are also harder on the Super Nintendo version for some reason. I don't know why. But because of this, the game isn't long and can be beaten in around 20 to 30 minutes if you are good. But if you're like me, you will die often, especially the first time you play these levels, so it may take a few hours to finish the game. Even though the game is slightly harder on one version than the other, there are other differences which may influence which one you would like to play. One major difference between the games is the sound. Now, infamously, the Mega Drive sound chip is not very good, but you can still get great music out of it, like in the Sonic games. Here, they did a very good job, and it doesn't sound bad, but the Super Nintendo sound chip just makes it sound that much better. The music is just really strong in the Super Nintendo version. The music is based on the movie, and most of it is recognizable and well done. Like in the second level, you are playing through Just Can't Wait to Be King, so that song is playing, and you can tell what song it is on both versions of the game, though like I said, I do prefer the Super Nintendo side. There are also some nice sound effects throughout the game, though I think the Mega Drive has a few more sound effects than the Super Nintendo one does, but I'm not entirely sure. I don't fully remember it, and this is kind of ad-lib, so forgive me if I'm wrong. This is just from my memory. There are also sound clips that were taken from the movie as well, which sound really bad, but they were really impressive for the day, and the quality is actually really good for the day as well. So when you first hear Rafiki saying, the king has returned, because you're gonna get a game over like I did a million times throughout the game, or when you hear Scar say kill him, it's really powerful, and you're like, oh wow, they've got scenes from the movie, and I can relate to that. That's really cool, and it just adds another little bit of depth to the game. The other major difference are the graphics between the games, and that is very understandable as well because the hardware is different in each machine. The Mega Drive has these scan lines over most of the game, but it still looks great, even though the color depth isn't there, so some of the shading does look a little bit horrible. Yet, they have a much better display of the reds for some reason, so the few red levels actually look better on the Mega Drive. The Super Nintendo version has more colors and therefore more depth and definition for the characters and levels levels, making it look nicer overall. Those backgrounds look so good on the Super Nintendo, and Simba just looks much nicer in my opinion, but the Mega Drive version has better parallax scrolling on some of the levels, so that makes it look nicer at times. Overall, I find the graphics to be slightly better on the Super Nintendo, but the Mega Drive version still looks great, and in some ways it is better. In my opinion, I find the Lion King games to be not worth it, which may come as a bit of a surprise to you because I have been giving a lot of praise to this game. Even though it looks nice, the colors and art direction is great, the animation is great, the music is great, the gameplay though just is not very good. It is way too hard, and it's mostly due to unfair mechanics. The fact that I can't land on a tail in order to swing through the second level of the game, making me die nearly all the time, is broken. The fact that so many things can kill you in one hit, some of the enemies take 2 or 3 or sometimes 1 hit in order to kill, the inconsistencies between everything just make the game overly convoluted and more harder than it needs to be. Because of that, aside from the very first level, I wasn't having fun. You just have to plod through this game, and the reward for getting through such a difficult game isn't really even there because the ending is just kind of an ending. It doesn't really wrap everything up, it just sort of says like a little bit of text and you get a nice screen and it's just like boom, you finish the game. That's not a reward for going through all of this stuff. So guys, tell me what you think about the Lion King games. Do you like them? Do you hate them? Do you have a preference over one or the other? Personally, I really like the Super Nintendo version in nearly every way, except for those red colors in the Mega Drive, and the fact that the Mega Drive version is easier. The one memory that I have of beating the game, I'm pretty sure it was on the Mega Drive version, so maybe that makes it a little bit better. I don't know. You guys tell me, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye! For JuLion month, I'm trying to do a little bit of a mane and the beard and everything to make me look like a bit more of a lion. It's really silly, but I hope it worked. I have poofy hair and stuff, but I don't know if it looks any good on camera. We'll find out in the edit, yay! Now the sound chip on the Mega Drive is infamously is not even a word, this is good. They use the music, talking like my British father, music. The Super Nintendo version has more colors and therefore more depth and definition.